It was early 2020, and the world was shutting down due to COVID. Like most people, I was stuck at home, restless and desperate for a change of scenery. I've always been drawn to the outdoors, hiking, camping, just being away from the chaos. So when the lockdowns began, I packed up my gear and started visiting national parks. It felt like the perfect opportunity to escape the noise and recharge.
One trip took me to a remote area near Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. I had read about a lesser-known trail that led to an isolated clearing, perfect for setting up camp. It wasn't an official campsite, but that's exactly what I wanted. Total solitude. I arrived in the late afternoon, parked my car at the trailhead, and started hiking. The air was crisp, the ground damp from recent snowfall. The trail was eerily quiet, but I welcomed the silence.
Before I go on, I should explain something. Back in 2019, I made a mistake that changed my life. I'd rather not get into specifics, but it was bad enough to tarnish my reputation and make me a target for a lot of anger. People I didn't even know started sending me threatening messages, harassing me online and over text. For months, it felt like I was constantly looking over my shoulder. Eventually, it stopped, or at least I thought it did. By 2020, I had started to convince myself that everyone had moved on. The hike to the clearing was uneventful, and I reached my destination just before sunset. The spot was perfect. A small flat area surrounded by trees with a view of a creek nearby. I set up my tent, gathered some firewood, and lit a small fire. After cooking a simple meal, I settled into my chair with a book. The quiet was exactly what I needed. As night fell, I decided to unwind with a joint. The fire crackled softly, and the world around me faded into darkness. The only sounds were the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant gurgle of the creek. I felt at peace for the first time in a long while. But then, my phone buzzed. I wasn't expecting any messages. My family knew I was out here, but they also knew I wouldn't have great reception. I pulled out my phone and saw a text from an unknown number. At first, I thought it might be spam, but then I read, "How's the camping trip?" My stomach dropped. I stared at the message, trying to process it. My initial thought was that it had to be a family member or friend playing a prank. But then another text came in. "Nice spot you've got here. Looks cozy." I froze. There was no way anyone knew where I was. I hadn't told anyone the exact location, not even my family. My hands trembled as I typed back, "Who is this?"
No response. I stood up, scanning the darkness beyond the glow of the fire. My headlamp cast long, shifting shadows across the trees. Every sound seemed amplified. The wind in the branches, the crackle of the fire, even my own breathing. I reached into my bag and pulled out my hunting knife. I didn't own a gun, but the knife was better than nothing. Minutes passed. I tried to calm and convince myself it was just a coincidence, maybe a wrong number. But then my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text. It was a photo. I hesitated before opening it, my heart pounding in my chest. The photo was of my campsite. It was taken from a distance, but there was no mistaking it. I could see my tent, the fire, even my backpack leaning against a tree. The timestamp showed it had been taken just minutes ago. My blood ran cold. Whoever this was, they were watching me. I turned off my headlamp, plunging myself into darkness. My eyes adjusted slowly, and I strained to see beyond the firelight. I thought I caught movement in the trees, but it was too dark to be sure. I held my knife tightly, my mind racing. Should I pack up and leave? Should I call for help? But I didn't have service, and the nearest town was miles away. Another buzz. Another photo. This one was closer, taken from just outside the ring of trees surrounding my camp. The accompanying text read, "I'm glad you brought the knife. It'll make this more interesting."
I've never felt fear like that in my life. My survival instincts kicked in. I grabbed my emergency whistle and blew it as loud as I could, hoping to scare them off or attract some kind of attention. The sound echoed through the woods, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, I heard footsteps. Quick, heavy footsteps crunching through the snow, moving away from my camp. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the dying fire, clutching my knife, jumping at every sound. Morning couldn't come fast enough. When the first light of dawn broke, I packed up my gear as quickly as I could and practically ran back to my car. The whole hike back, I felt like I was being watched, but I didn't see anyone. To this day, I don't know who it was or how they found me. I've changed my phone number twice since then, and I've never gone camping alone again. Whoever they were, they wanted me to feel vulnerable, to feel hunted, and they succeeded. That trip was supposed to be my escape, but it turned into the most terrifying experience of my life.